There's no question at all. This is the biggest episode of Nothing But Net Aussie Hoops presented by Amy we've ever logged. Ryan Broekhoff, of course, he's here in studio as per usual. And we have an unbelievable NBL Championship Series to unpack. It's tied entering Game 3. Gaze and Copes, they'll be here for truth or trash. But somehow, that isn't the day's breaking news. That would be the Boomers announcing their next head coach. Andrew Bogut was on the selection committee. He will also join us in just a few minutes. But let's get straight to that news that I just referenced. The Boomers have a new head coach. And to tell us more about this, ESPN.com.au's Olgun Uluc is here. And Olgun, it is great to see you. And you're looking nice and fresh because it's been a long day from that Game 2 at John Kane Arena to now this news. Who is the next Boomers head coach and how did this all come about?
Kane, the Australian Boomers have selected Adam Caporn as their new head coach. Now, Adam Caporn, currently an assistant coach with the Washington Wizards. He spent the last few major tournament campaigns as an assistant coach with the Australian Boomers, so under Andre Lamanis, under Brian Gorgian. Prior to that, he was at St. Mary's as a coach, spent some time at the AIS, played a key role in the development of guys like Josh Giddey and Dyson Daniels. So he has climbed that Basketball Australia pathway as well as anybody. Now, this came down to multiple candidates. The final five, from what I understand, was Caporn. It was Quinn Snyder, the Atlanta Hawks head coach, Gordon Herbert, Will Weaver, and Brett Brillmeyer, a current assistant coach with the Orlando Magic. Now, Gordon Herbert was quick to withdraw himself from that position. I would look at that vacant Canada head coach job for him. That is where some of the noise is right now. And Quinn Snyder is someone who removed himself from the process. I'm told that the time commitment wasn't something that he was ready to commit to. Now, the word is that Quinn Snyder and Basketball Australia are still in talks about a potential role going forward, a potential advisory role between Snyder and the Australian Boomers. So there's a good chance that he will be involved in some capacity, but this is Adam Caporn's job. We will see him at the next major tournament, the 2027 FIBA World Cup in Qatar. Dean Vickerman, as his associate head coach, was also announced today. But Adam Caporn, the next head coach of the Australian Boomers.
Hey, mate, that is great background information from you, Olgun. We know Adam Caporn's been around the Boomers, as you referenced. Now he is manning the sidelines with the head coaching role. Appreciate the time, Olgun.
Thanks, Kane. Appreciate it.
All right, so if you're not across the full resume of Adam Caporn, here it is in writing for you. And St. Mary's, that's Australia's college, Ryan. You didn't go there, but that's okay. He was there for a number of years before doing an excellent job with a number of the Boomers that are on the roster now at the Basketball Australia Centre of Excellence. And then he had a stint in the G League with the Nets organisation in the NBA. And now, of course, he is at the Washington Wizards. So no question, for over a decade, Adam Caporn has a very impressive resume building. You can now add the Australian Boomers head coach as well. Ryan Broekhoff, as promised, is here at the desk. You might not have played under him as a coach, but what did you make of this hire? Because you're certainly well aware of what he's been able to do for the program.
Yeah, I liked it. I think having an Australian's really important. I think having someone who understands the culture of the Boomers, has been there in the past, obviously assisting under Lamanis and now Brian Gorgian as well. That's two great coaches to learn from, to be a part of major tournaments, to see what it takes, what the preparation's like, what it's like getting players from the NBA and the NBL and over in Europe and bringing them together in those short amount of times to get the best out of them. So look forward to watching him and seeing how the Boomers go forward.
Yeah, it's very well said. But we do have some questions for someone that was on the committee that decided Adam Caporn from a number of great potential candidates. Of course, it is Andrew Bogut, and also host of the Rogue Bogues podcast. It's great to see you, and I was a little concerned earlier in the week, perhaps some power issues at home. I hope everything's okay with the cyclone and the rain and the wind and everything you've had to deal with over the last few days, mate.
Yeah, no, we're all good. We're all good. Just a little bit of few days with no power makes it fun for the kids. You know, take it back to the ancient times how people used to live. So otherwise, we're all good. It was just the power, really. A bit of water, a bit of power loss, and we're good to go now.
Good stuff. But yes, make sure you check out the Rogue Bogues podcast. Andrew Bogut does a great job there. All right, let's cut to some of the questions that perhaps people at home have about the process and what went on behind the scenes. So I guess the easiest question I've got for you to start, what gave Caporn the edge over the other candidates that were potentially in the mix here?
Oh, there was numerous things. He's been kind of arm's length within the program for 15, 20 years. You know, he came through the Centre of Excellence as a player, or the AIS back then, coached there. He's coached in college, St. Mary's having a huge pipeline, G League, NBA. We really like the fact that he'd been in numerous different avenues of coaching, which I think is important when you come in. He's very, very switched on, X's and O's analytics. That's kind of his biggest strength. He's good with making adjustments on the fly and knowing the game very, very well. Obviously, the one knock is he hasn't been a head coach. So that was the one thing we factored in, but we thought the time is now. He's got a lot of good backing. A lot of people have spoken very highly of him, of work ethic and whatnot. And I just like the fact that I think our national team, I think at times needs to have a better segue from the juniors all the way up to the seniors. The Europeans do a fantastic job of that. And I think Adam will have a real grasp on that because he's been through every single system in Australia. He'll, I think, be much more collaborative with that feel.
Yeah, and I really like Dean Vickerman coming on as the associate assistant coach, sort of taking over things during sort of the fever breaks and stuff, being based in Australia. So talk about how his role is going to fit in, how they're going to work together, because I think it's really important to have a strong assistant, associate head coach to help, especially a new head coach in a new role.
Yeah, spot on. Look, the FIBA Asia Cup stuff has really gotten bigger and bigger over the last 5-6 years. When it first happened, we didn't really know how to go after it, who coaches it. Now we have an actual plan where it was a no-brainer to have whoever the coach is of the FIBA Asia Cup being based in Australia, so being preferably an NBL coach, that then segues into being an assistant with the main squad, right? Because what we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years, even though the Asia Cup is the quote-unquote B squad, sometimes even fringe beyond that, we've had guys from that FIBA Asia Cup squad make the national team and play minutes. There's one right there, Jack McVeigh, someone who no one would have thought he would have made the main squad and actually played the valuable minutes he has. He came through the FIBA Asia Cup system. So we're wasting valuable time and resources not combining those two programs. We can run the same stuff, have the same kind of flow offensively, defensively, the same structure, the same cultural push. And then it kind of flows nicely into the national team. And I can tell you, we're going to have 2 or 3 players probably again that flow into that Boomers squad from that team. So having Dean involved, he's on the ground here in Australia, fantastic coach. It was just a no-brainer and actually a mandate for us to make sure that coach isn't just a fly-in, fly-out like we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years. And that's no disrespect to the coaches that have done it. It just needs to be better organised. And now we've had the time to do that with restructuring a full coaching selection.
Yeah, so you already referenced Adam Caporn. Not the longest head coaching resume in his own right, but he has taken a lot of responsibility with the Boomers in the past. Is there any expectation or belief that he should take a head coaching role of perhaps a club over the next few years here as we lead into the World Cup and then the Olympics?
Yes and no. There's pros and cons to both, and that's the other side of things that we weighed up within the selection. If you've got a full-time head coach in the NBA especially, that's a very, very big time commitment to then flow in to be a head coach of a national team, especially we've seen it before. The team goes to conference finals / finals and then they come late. We dealt with it with the Mavericks in Green and Exton that came late, kind of came to camp fatigued and banged up a little bit, and you're behind the 8 ball. So there's pros and cons to it, but I think the staff that, he will put together, that Basketball Australia will help put together, having Dean involved, I think will definitely help him. And I like the fact that he's an assistant, he's working in the best league in the world, but he can also have his mind to the Boomers while he's in season in the NBA a little bit. We're focused on the now, but I think as a head coach, completely different story, especially if you're in a mid-tier NBA team or a low-tier NBA team that's not doing too well. I think the time commitment you need to get that club back to the top of the NBA in the respective conferences will be very hard to do with a national team coaching job.
Yeah, I like it. Sorry, Ryan, I'm going to just jump in quickly because we've only got time for one more. So Quinn Snyder then, to follow that up, is he still going to be involved? Because we've seen some reporting that he may be, and what would that look like?
From what I understand, there's a potential for a consulting role of some sort. So I think that's still all being worked. Obviously, a guy with his basketball IQ and brain, if we can have people like that involved with the national team in some capacity, I think is a good thing, is a positive. It's a great resource for, as you said just before, a head coach that hasn't been a head coach, especially the national team or for a long tenure. So the more resources we can get that can help with the national team and the future direction of it, you'd be silly not to take it. So I think it's still all happening. I'm not sure where that's at. I don't think it's concrete yet, but if he's willing to do it, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, it's going to be a loaded coaching staff by the looks of it, or, part of the program there, Bogues. Last one. I lied before. Congratulations in order. Assistant coach of the Sydney Kings, moving from that nice courtside seat next to Paul Smith to now the sidelines. What went into this and what's it going to look like?
Yeah, look, I've kind of reevaluated, sitting on the sideline, ownership group, kind of managerial role. Doesn't give me the thrill I thought it would. You don't have any control once that ball's thrown up. And I like being in the arena. I like being the failures, the wins, the losses, dealing with all that kind of stuff. I enjoyed coaching. So we had, some staff move on. There was an opening, got hit up about it, and it all kind of came together pretty quickly after that. So, when I retired from playing, I didn't want to jump straight into coaching because I didn't want to jump into it to then get fatigued and not like it because I jumped into it too quickly because I have to. So 3 or 4 years away from the game, I think it's time to get back involved and hopefully, learn a lot under Gorge and get better as an assistant to, obviously one day, like every assistant, be a head coach one day.
Oh, we like it. Who knows how long Gorge? Maybe he's got a few years left, maybe. But maybe Bogues is the next head coach of the Sydney Kings. Appreciate the time. Thanks for the insight, Bogues.
No worries. Cheers.
All right, we have got Truth or Trash coming up next. Ryan and Gaze and Copes are here, and usually gets a bit chaotic. We got NBL, we got the Boomers, plenty to get to. Stick around on Nothing But Net, Aussie Hoops. Welcome back into Nothing But Net, Aussie Hoops, presented by Amy. It is time now for a little bit of Truth or Trash. And when we do this, we bring in the best duo in NBL history. Andrew Gaze, Lanard Copeland, Ryan Broekhoff, of course, is still here. And normally I set up some kind of silly joke, but we're going to get straight down to business here, Gazy. The Boomers have announced their head coach, Adam Caporn, is going to be the man. So, Truth or Trash, you are fully on board with Adam Caporn. This was the best man for the job.
Yeah, the committee that was charged with making the selection, they were in a win-win situation. They had some amazing candidates put their hand up. I was a little surprised that it eventually went to Adam Caporn, but he's been with the program for a number of terms so far as Brian Goorjian's assistant. I think he understands the players. He understands the players' personalities. And I think with that international experience that he has, he'll hold him in good stead. So we hope nothing but the best of Adam Caporn. He's over there going through some tough times right now, I'm sure, with the Wizards, the Washington Wizards, not doing a whole lot of winning this season. But those experience of dealing with NBA guys and the reality of it is there's going to be a lot of the Australian players who play in the NBA. So I think it's a good call, and we wish him nothing but the best.
Yeah, Copes, we've discussed the Australian coaches before. Do you think it's right that it was an Aussie that got this job?
Absolutely. The most important thing is he has the respect of the players. And you want to build this program the right way. You got a lot of young guys coming through, Josh Giddey, Dyson Daniels, and he spent some time with these guys. So at the end of the day, if these guys respect him, and he knows what he's doing, then I reckon they're in good hands.
Relationship's a big part of this, Rowdy. It seems like as we've now got Boomers teams that really are fully loaded with NBA players.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Caporn's coaching at the Centre of Excellence plays into it as well, building these relationships with these young stars that are now, I guess, the key piece of the Boomers program at a young age. So having that relationship, being around the culture that is the Boomers program, I think that's the number one cornerstone of what we wanted to see kept and preserved. So only time will tell how the coaching actually goes, but I think it's a really good hire.
Now, Gazy and Copes, we did just chat with Andrew Bogut a little bit earlier. Now, he was on the committee. Now, you both know this man well. In fact, you understood what it was like to coach this man with the Sydney Kings. So, that being said, you have an intricate knowledge of what this might look like. Copes, truth or trash? Andrew Bogut is going to make an excellent coach, not only for the Kings next year, but moving forward as well.
Well, it's going to be funny. I'll tell you why.
That's why I went to Copes first. That's why I went to him first.
I actually texted him when I found it out. And I said, good luck, big fella, I can't wait for you to get out there and rebound balls for all your players. Because he had me working like a poor man, I'm telling you. I was out there sweating before the game. So good luck to him. I think he'll make a great coach, though.
Gazy?
Yeah, I think it's great. And I think that clearly, to me, knowing Bogues, that this is probably a part of a pathway that he sees himself to get some experience to ultimately one day be a head coach. I read some comments a couple of months ago that when they're thinking about his potential coaching career, that he was excited about maybe down the track someday being the Boomers head coach. You know, he's got a wealth of experience playing in the NBA and, of course, the time he spent here. And he's an Olympian. He's done a lot for Australian basketball. He's got a very astute knowledge about the game. And now it's just about being able to find the systems in the process to impart that knowledge onto his players and get them to buy into the systems that he wants to build, but ultimately right now he is an assistant coach to Brian Gorge, and Brian Gorge is still going to be calling the shots. But I can think of no person to sit beside to learn about what it takes to be a successful coach than Brian Gorge. So he's in a perfect learning situation as well as providing some assistance to the players and the coaching staff.
Yeah, and Ryan, we understood.
He's going to need to learn to carry those balls and those water bottles too. That's right.
Well, I'm curious, outside of that, Ryan, we saw this was a very high-powered Sydney Kings ownership group that used to just take establishment in the front row there at Kudos Bank Arena. I'm curious, you think technical foul's a problem for Bogues on the sideline? Now he's attached. He's attached to what's going on the floor.
He's going to have to get learn a bit more patience.
There we go.
Just sort of defer to Gorge. But I think his experience. I think obviously for two reasons. I think Kane. One, I'm going to say Truth because we want him back on this show as a regular guest.
Two, because you're scared.
But that was part of one, and two, obviously his knowledge of the game, both international and in the NBL, is basically second to none. And he's got a great mind for it, and as he kind of learns the ins and outs of what it takes to be a coach and learn from one of the best that's ever done it in the NBL and Gorge, I think he's going to be terrific.
Yeah, well said. This NBL Championship Series, and by the way, Gazy, you're outstanding on the call. I keep saying it, Copes, you're tearing the pre-game, halftime apart. It's been great to watch from over here. But Shea Ili, he did not play in the second half of this game. Straight elbow from Dave O'Hickey in the second quarter. So truth or trash, if Shea Ili takes no further part in this series, Melbourne United are done.
Well, I'll say trash, but I think that they're in trouble. There's no doubt about that, because you saw in game one, and as we've seen throughout the course of the season, when Tyler Harvey and Trey Kell, when they get going, they win most of the time. And when they've struggled, like they did in game one, where they combined for only 15 points between the two of them, then it was advantage Melbourne United, and a big part of that is the backcourt defensive efforts that both Matthew Dellavedova and Shea Ili play. In fact, I've said this right throughout the call. I can't think of a better defensive backcourt in the history of the game, such as what they bring to the table. So the challenge becomes a whole lot harder, but they've got some good depth. And, you know, we even saw in that game, they trailed without Shea, and they were able to make some big shots and get back into it. They might have to change their formula a little bit without Shea being there.
Yeah, plenty of days off in between these games, Copes, but then you would be asking a significantly more from Ian Clark and also Daly, as Gazy points to.
Absolutely, and Ian Clark's been fantastic. I think he had 31 points last night. In fact, they wouldn't be where they are today if Ian Clark didn't fire the way he's been firing. So, look, he's probably the best offensive player on that team besides Chris Golding. But like Drew said, they're going to need some defense. And without Shea Ili, they struggle. I mean, last year he missed a couple of games. He missed 4 or 5 games, and they lost all of those games. So they need him as much as possible. And we hope he's capable and able to go.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm going to say true. I think he's not their best player, but he might be their most important, just being able to lock down defensively, take away one of Illawarra's key backcourt players. So hopefully he's okay. That's the main thing. We want him healthy. We want him back on the court, and health is the most important thing. Yeah,
we know how tough he is, but geez, he just keeps getting those knocks to the head. So hopefully Shea Ili is okay there. Hey, last one I got for you, and this was Ryan that came up with this, Gazy. We saw not only the Pelicans coming to Australia, but The big three. Ice Cube just been taking over the media landscape in Australia. So the question is, Copes, Gaze, who's going to be the third member of your team in the big three later this year?
Well, we put out to SOS, but I say if we're going with the veteran players, hey, Mark Rakey, I saw him the other day. He's in spectacular condition, and we need someone to go get those boards. And he's a rebounding fool. So we want someone who can rebound, is happy to kick it out to where the ball should be, and that's with those that can get the job done from the perimeter. And if he fits in, slides into that, look out.
Oh, we like that.
I got one quick question, Kane.
Yes.
Drew, do you know any Ice Cube songs?
There we go. That was it.
Do you know any Ice Cube songs at all? Name one. Name one.
No, I'm not familiar with his work. I know he's been in some good movies, though. I've seen him in the movies.
No doubt.
It was a good day, I think, is one of the big tracks that he's been rolling with. But anyway.
Yep, I've said this to you boys before, but I've worked with Ben, our producer, long enough to know that when he starts feeding lines in the ear, then we know that something has gone wrong.
I'm down with it, Shane. I'm hip.
Gentlemen,
Dude, just stop it down.
Hey,
Stop it down, bro.
Always a pleasure. Andrew Gaze, Lanard, Copeland. Safe travels to the Gong on the weekend. Hopefully this series stays as great as it's been.
Thank you, Kane. Good on you, Ryan. All the best.
That was a good question from you there, Ryan. But we're going to put you under the pump next. You've always been good at shooting the three, so we've got Broekhoff's big three questions ahead of Game 3. That's coming up next on Nothing But Net Aussie Hoops.
Inbound to Harvey. 7 seconds left. He pulls the trigger. Big shot taker. Big shot maker. Tyler Harvey enormous. Time expiring. Golding for the win from deep. Oh, it was in and then it was out.
The highs and lows of this NBL Championship Series. You're watching Nothing But Net Aussie Hoops presented by Amy. Just an incredible finish to that game. And it does lead us to Game 3, tied 1-1. And Ryan Broekhoff's big three for Game 3. What are three questions on your mind?
How does United combat Illawarra going big? They went big with Ulbrich and Froling in the lineup, 22 offensive rebounds. Each player drew 5 fouls. How does United make the change? I also want to know how they get Jack White going.
Got it.
He took 0 shots in Game 2, had 6 rebounds, foul trouble, looks disinterested in times, lacking confidence. They need to get him firing. And the last one is Dave O'Hickey. He plays in the fourth quarter. Defensively is great. Offensively, they're able to sag off United from him and allow him to be kind of the scorer. So what do they do? How do they change it up to make Dave O'Hickey more effective in the fourth?
I love it. And there's going to be more questions to come out of this game. Dave O'Hickey was only 2 for 7 from the floor, but he's making energy plays on each side of the floor. And he hit a big 3 and 2 clutch free throws as well. That's good stuff from you. This series is absolutely awesome. And you can also get the diary out because here is the remaining schedule. Game 3, Sunday evening at 5:30 p.m. Eastern from the Gong. Then we return back to Melbourne on Wednesday. What an unbelievable crowd that was last night at John Kane Arena. And if required, we head back to Illawarra for the decider on the 23rd of March. But overall, this series is so tight. Each game is won on the margins. It's also won when big-time players make big-time plays. Through 2 games, it is a very long list. Here are the top plays of the Championship Series so far, presented by Hungry Jacks. The burgers are better at Hungry Jacks.
Ran through his mind. There's an audacious pass that falls fortunately for Todd Blanchfield, who picks up in Championship Game 1 where he left off.
To continue to be aggressive.
It's a combination of him and also...
Chris Golding is catching fire. Delamodova blocked. Huge from Cal. And then it caught the foot of Clark and the Hawks get the ball back. It was huge for Melbourne in that first half. Shot clock at 3. Delamodova steps in and shot it like he meant it. Golding searching for space, decides to head inside. Little dump off for Marcus Lee. He'll go to the line to shoot an extra. Inbound to Harvey. 7 seconds left. He pulls the trigger. Big shot taker. Big shot maker. Tyler Harvey enormous.
Hey, look, we promised a loaded show on Nothing But Net Aussie Hoops, and it's been absolutely packed. And it probably could have been an hour, but here we are, as if we haven't had enough big names. We thought we'd throw in Bryce Cotton in the mix as well. The 5-time NBL MVP is here to give us his version of the ultimate starting lineup, presented by Hungry Jacks. The burgers are better at Hungry Jacks.
He's feeling good, Pete. He's feeling real good. Bryce Cotton cannot be stopped.
Who would you have at the 1?
Ricky Grace.
Who would you have at the 2?
Me.
Bryce Cotton, what a move. Listen to the roar.
At the 3?
Leroy Logan.
At the 4?
You know what? Let's go my man Miles Plumlee.
Plumlee! There's no 5 men in this league that's gonna stop that. Too big, too strong.
And at the 5?
Actually, give me Black Hawk. I'll take Black Hawk.
That's a good starting 5. And who would you have as your coach?
I'm trying to think. You know what? Just to keep it retro, we'll go Brett Brown. Catch all your NBL action right here on ESPN.
Hey, credit to the great man, Bryce Cotton. I think he's the only guy that's taken that task seriously now. Game 3 of the NBL Championship Series Sunday night.
Yep.
Last week you said Hawks in 5. Are you still feeling confident?
Sticking with him. I think this series is going to go the length, so we'll see.
I said Hawks in 4, so I may as well stick with it. We'll see it. This series has been so crazy so far. The Boomers have a new head coach. Adam Caporn is the man. This was a really fun show, and we're excited to see what is to come. We'll be back here next week. Maybe the championship series will be over. We'll see you then.